Now the question becomes, well, how did Rhodes and later Lord Milner go about setting up this society?
It originally consisted of Cecil Rhodes and a brain trust from British banking and politics.
What did the power structure look like from within?
The Rhodes Scholarship established by the terms of Cecil Rhodes' seventh will are known to everyone. What is not so widely known is that Rhodes, in 5 previous wills, left his fortune to form a secret society which was to devote itself to the preservation and expansion of the British Empire. And what does not seem to be known to anyone is that this secret society continues to exist to this day. In the secret society, Rhodes was to be leader. Stead, he's the guy that wrote the book on the wills. Stead, Brett, Lord Esher, and Milner were to form an executive committee called the Society of the Elect. Arthur, Lord Balfour, Sir Harry Johnston, Lord Rothschild, Albert, Lord Grey, and the others were listed as potential members of a circle of initiates, while there was to be an outer circle known as the Association of Helpers, later organized by Milner as the Round Table Organization. After the death of Cecil Rhodes, the organization fell under the control of Lord Alfred Milner, who recruited young men from the upper class of society to become part of the Association of Helpers.
So here's where it gets interesting, because Rhodes borrows from his the Illuminist founder Adam Weishaupt, who was a quote that's attributed to him is only men of superior intelligence have the right to rule the world. And so it was Weishaupt who postulated this idea of rings within rings of power.
And now everyone knows that the Illuminati existed at one time. It was created in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, but shortly thereafter it was exposed in Bavaria. The police raided it, they arrested its members, they discovered its ledgers and its books and its papers, which is why we know so much about them. They're part of the public record now. We know what the Illuminati was trying to do and how they were structured and how they organized and so forth. When we realize that there are people like Cecil Rhodes who read Adam Weishaupt's work and said, hey, this is a good idea, let's use it. He adopted the strategy that Weishaupt created of, he called it rings within rings within rings.
And so Weishaupt said that, at the center of his Illuminist organization, there would be a controlling group, maybe 3 or 4 individuals, a small core group.
They would be the absolute rulers of this whole structure.
These 3 or 4 would in turn create a membership ring around them, a larger number of individuals, maybe 20 to 30 people, up to 50.
Now, the secondary rings around the Society of the Elect were called round tables. And they were formed in the United States, in Britain, and all of the former British dependencies, and they still exist today. Other members who were recruited into this larger organization would not be allowed to know that there was an inner control and direction.
Now, the outer group, thinking that they're the core group, not knowing that they're being dominated by this inner ring, what do? They create a membership ring around them. And the members of that ring would not be aware that they're being controlled and dominated by the inner rings, and so on. So
they were brought in for a lesser view of the whole purpose.
So we keep going.
Around the round tables, a larger ring, a tertiary ring, was formed, and they called them front groups in a generic sense.
Now that additional outer ring, thinking that they're the whole society, they then create a ring around them comprising thousands of people. And those people will not suspect that they're being controlled and directed by the inner rings. And then finally we get yet another ring of power created to reach out to the mass organizations, the mass membership groups, governments, and the general public.
And this is what Weishaupt called rings within rings within rings. Cecil Rhodes thought that was a dandy idea, and so he adopted it as the structure for his secret society.
So the idea is that, with just 1/10 of 1% of the population, you can control the entire world. by controlling the centers of power in any society. You let the people have their elected officials. After all, those are just members of the outer ring of power anyway. And those guys are all being controlled and manipulated by the inner rings.
This group of elitist bankers and industrialists who get control not only of the banking system and the monetary system, but really our foreign policy and our government. I wrote a little speech and gave a speech right before I left Congress, and I said I don't think the members of Congress really know how little effect they have in controlling things. Really, and that means that the Congress itself doesn't have much control. The people they don't have much to say about it either. The control of overall policy is really in the hands of a very small number of people who control all the administrations, all the appointments to cabinets, and certainly all the appointments to the Federal Reserve.
And so Weinstock envisioned a handful of people strategically placed in carefully controlled rings within rings of power. You can control the entire world.
Big banking power structure seems to have control because they're on the inside and they have control of money and they know what policy is going to be down the road.
Can you specify this structure, you're talking about this power structure?
Well, the power structure basically is made up of a lot of very powerful business and corporate leaders in the country. And in particular, they have formed their organizations. They've been around for a good while, and they don't even hide it anymore. The Trilateral Commission, as well as the Council of Foreign Relations.
Remember, this is all described primarily by Professor Quigley, was outwardly modeled after the Jesuit order. Quigley was a great admirer of the structure of the Jesuits, and he decided to model his secret society after that structure. But at the deeper level, it was clear that he borrowed the structure from the Illuminati.
And the people, the common folk, being controlled, will never know how any of it worked.